Hi, hello once again, true believers. Well, now it's time to take a look at Black Panther. Thousands of years ago, 5 African tribes war over a meteorite containing the metal vibranium. One warrior ingests a heart-shaped herb affected by the metal and gains superhuman abilities, becoming the first Black Panther. He unites all but the Jabari tribe to form the nation of Wakanda. Over centuries, the Wakandans used the vibranium to develop advanced technology and isolate themselves from the world by posing as a third world country. In 1992, Wakandan King T'Chaka visits his brother Najobu, who was working undercover in Oakland, California. T'Chaka accuses Najobu of assisting black market arms dealer Ulysses Claw with stealing vibranium from Wakanda. Najobu's prime reveals he is Zuri, and another undercover Wakandan, and confirms T'Chaka's suspicions. In the present day, following T'Chaka's death, his son T'Challa returns to Wakanda to assume the throne. He and Okoye, the leader of the Dora Milaje regiment, extract T'Challa's ex-lover Nakia from an undercover assignment so she could attend his coronation ceremony with his mother Ramonda and his younger sister Shuri. At the ceremony, the Jabbar tribe's leader M'Baku challenges T'Challa for the crown in ritual combat. T'Challa defeats M'Baku and persuades him to yield rather than die. When Claw and his accomplice Eric Stevens steal Wakandan artifact from London Museum, T'Challa's friend and Okoye's lover Wakabe urges him to bring Claw back alive. T'Challa, Okoye, and Nakia travel to Busan, South Korea, where Claw plans to sell the artifact to CIA agent Everett K. Ross. A firefight erupts, and Claw attempts to flee but is caught by T'Challa. Royal Dream releases him to Ross's custody. Claw tells Ross that Wakanda's international image is a front for a technologically advanced civilization. Eric attacks and extracts Claw as Ross is gravely injured, protecting Nakia. Rather than pursue Claw, T'Challa takes Ross to Wakanda, where their technology can save him. While Shuri heals Ross, T'Challa confronts Zuri about Najobu. Zuri explains that Najobu planned to share Wakanda's technology with people of African descent around the world to help them conquer their oppressors. As T'Chaka arrested Najobu, the latter attacked Zuri and forced T'Chaka to kill him. T'Chaka ordered Zuri to lie that Najobu had disappeared and left behind Najobu's American son to maintain the lie. The boy grew up to be Stevens, a Black Ops U.S. Navy SEAL who adopted the name Killmonger. Meanwhile, Killmonger kills Claw and takes his body to Wakanda. He is brought before the tribal elders, revealing his identity to be Njadka and claimed to the throne. Killmonger challenges T'Challa to ritual combat, where he kills Zuri, defeats T'Challa, and hurls him over a waterfall to his presumed death. Killmonger ingests the heart-shaped herb and orders the rest incinerated, but Nakia extracts one first. Killmonger, supported by Wakabe and his army, prepares to distribute shipments of Wakandan weapons to operatives around the world. Nakia, Shuri, Ramonda, and Ross flee to the Jabari tribe for aid. They find a comatose T'Challa, rescued by the Jabari in repayment for sparing M'Baku's life. Held by Nakia's herb, T'Challa returns to fight Killmonger, who dons his own nanotech suit, similar to T'Challa's. Wakabe and his army fight Shuri, Nakia, and the Dora Milaje, while Ross remotely pilots a jet and shoots down planes carrying the vibranium weapons. M'Baku and the Jabari arrive to reinforce T'Challa. Confronted by Okoye, Wakabe and his army stand down. Fighting in Wakanda's vibranium mine, T'Challa disrupts Killmonger's suit and stabs him. Killmonger refuses to be healed, choosing to die a free man rather than be incarcerated. T'Challa takes him to the waterfall where they fought, where Killmonger dies peacefully. T'Challa establishes an outreach center at the building where Najobu died, to be run by Nakia and Shuri. In mid-credit scene, T'Challa appears before the United Nations to reveal Wakanda's true nature to the world. In the post-credit scene, Shuri helps Bucky Barnes with his recovery. Nice. So let's look at the production of this movie, beginning with the development. In June 1992, Wesley Snipes announced his intention to make a film about Black Panther and began work on it by that August. Snipes felt that Africa had been portrayed poorly in Hollywood films previously, and that this film could highlight the majesty of the continent due to the title character and being noble and the antithesis of African stereotypes. The next July, Snipes planned to begin the Black Panther after starring in Demolition Man, and a month later he expressed interest in making sequels to the film as well. In January 1994, Snipes entered talks with Columbia Pictures to portray Black Panther, and Black Panther co-creator Stan Lee joined the film by March and entered early development in May. Snipes had discussions with several different screenwriters and directors about the project, including Mario Van Peebles and John Singleton. When the film had not progressed by January 1996, Lee explained that he had not been pleased with the scripts for the project. Snipes said that one of the issues of the project's development was confusion among those unfamiliar with the comics, who thought the film was about the Black Panther Party. In July 1997, Black Panther was listed as part of Marvel Comics' film slate, and in March 1998, Marvel reportedly hired Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti, who at the time were editors of the Black Panther comics, to work on it. Quesada and Palmiotti have both denied this. That August, corporate problems at Marvel put the project on hold. A year later, Wesley Snipes is set to produce and possibly star in the film, while Artisan Entertainment announced a deal with Marvel in May 2000 to co-produce, finance, and distribute the film. In March 2002, Snipes planned to make the film or Blade 3 over the next year. In July 2004, Blade 3 director David Scoyer stated that he felt Snipes starring as Black Panther in addition to Marvel's Blade might be overkill. In September 2005, Marvel Chairman and CEO Avi Arad announced Black Panther as one of 10 films being developed by the new Marvel Studios. Marvel Studios received financing to produce the slate of 10 films to be distributed by Paramount Pictures. In June 2006, Snipes said he hoped to have a director for the project soon, and Marvel Studios President Kevin Feige reiterated in February 2007 that Black Panther was in development. By that July, Singleton had been approached to direct the film. In March 2009, Marvel hired writers to help come up with creative ways to launch its lesser-known properties, including Black Panther. Nate Moore, the head of the writers program, was overseeing the development of Black Panther specifically. Snipes' involvement stalled at this time, as he was convicted of failing to file a tax return, serving a sentence from June 2010 to April 2013. In January 2011, Marvel Studios hired documentary filmmaker Mark Bailey to write a script for Black Panther, to be produced by Feige. By October 2013, the metal vibranium, which comes from Black Panther's home nation Wakanda, was introduced in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Marvel had considered showing Wakanda itself as early as Iron Man 2, but were waiting until they had a full idea of how to depict it. In October 2014, Feige announced that Black Panther will be released on November 3, 2017, with Chadwick Boseman cast as T'Challa/Black Panther. Boseman did an audition for the role, instead discussing what he wanted to do with the part with Marvel, and earned $2 million for appearing in the film. The actor was said to first portray the character at Captain America Civil War. Snipes gave his support for the project, despite no longer being involved. Feige said that Marvel was considering minority writers and directors for the film, but will prioritize the best filmmakers, the best writers, the best directors possible, so I'm not going to say anything for sure that we're going to hire from any one demographic. He added they had met with former Black Panther comics writer Reginald Hudlin. In January 2015, Boseman said that the film was going through a brainstorming phase, and the next month Marvel pushed back the release date to July 6, 2018. Also in February, Feige stated that casting for the film was underway, and added that he was set to meet with directors about the film following the release of Avengers Age of Ultron at the end of April. By May 2015, Marvel had discussions with Ava DuVernay to work on either Black Panther or Captain Marvel as director. In June, Feige confirmed they had met with several directors, including DuVernay, and said that they expected a decision to be made by mid to late 2015. By early July, DuVernay had passed on directing the film, explaining that she had been drawn to the cultural importance of depicting a Black hero to the world, but disagreed with Marvel on the story and did not want to compromise her vision. By October 2015, F. Gary Gray and Ryan Coogler had been considered as directors for the film. The negotiations with Coogler had cooled, and Gray had chosen to direct The Fate of the Furious instead. Joe Robert Cole, a member of the Marvel Writers Program, was in talks to write the screenplay, and Marvel changed the release date once again, moving it to February 16, 2018. By December, discussions with Coogler were reignited after the successful opening of his film, Creed. And now on to the pre-production. Coogler was confirmed as director in January 2016, It said that the film was his most personal movie to date, in part because he grew up reading comics. Excuse me. Adding, quote, I feel really fortunate to be able to work on something I'm this passionate about again. After being wooed by Feige for months, Coogler agreed to direct the film if he could bring collaborators from his previous films to differentiate the film from other MCU films that are often shot, composed, and edited by the same in-house people. This included Fruitvale Station cinematographer Rachel Morrison, as well as production designer Hannah Beechler and composer Ludwig Göransson, who both worked with Coogler on Fruitvale Station and Creed. Coogler felt Black Panther would be unique while still fitting within the MCU's overall narrative. In April 2016, Feige said that Coogler was working on the script with Cole, and the filming would begin at the beginning of 2017. He added that the film would be the first Marvel Studios production to feature a primarily African-American cast. Lupita Nyong'o soon entered negotiations stars Shaw's love interest, and Michael B. Jordan joined an undisclosed role, and to previously working with Coogler on Fruitvale Station and Creed. Nate Moore, serving as a producer on the film by the end of May, said that filming would occur in Atlanta, Georgia, with Marvel definitely investigating shooting in Africa as well. At San Diego Comic-Con 2016, Nyong'o was confirmed for the film in the role of Nakia, while Jordan's role was revealed to be Eric Killmonger. Also announced was Denai Guerrero as Okoye. Coogler confirmed that filming would begin in January 2017. Additional casting occurred from September 2016 until the start of filming, with Winston Duke as M'Baku. Rola Yaha Abdul-Mateen II had also tested for. Forest Whitaker as Zuri. Danielle Kaluuya as Wakabi. Angela Bassett as T'Challa's mother Ramonda. Sterling K. Brown as Najobu. And Letitia Wright in an unspecified role. Florence Kazuma was revealed to be reprising role as Ayo from Captain America Civil War. Amanda Stenberg, who is biracial and light-skinned, was also considered for a role in the film, but was not comfortable taking the place of a dark-skinned actor, and described her decision to pass on the role as really challenging. By January 2017, Marvel received permission for the Oakland, California-based public transit agency AC Transit to use their logo in the film for the opening flashback sequence. The city was chosen due to Coogler growing up in that area. And now on to the writing. The production team was inspired by Ta-Nehisi Coates' run on Black Panther, who was writing the comic at the same time they were working on the film. A particular inspiration for Coates' poetic dialogue, Brian Stelfreeze's art, and some of the questions that it's asking. The film was also inspired by the comics run of Jack Kirby, Christopher Priest, which Coogler felt most influenced the film, Jonathan Hickman, and Hod Lin. Characters for the film were picked from throughout comics based on what worked for the film's story. The ceremonial betrothal aspect of the Dora Milaje was not adapted from the comics for the film. Coogler hoped to include Spider-Man villain Kraven the Hunter early in the process because of a scene in the Priest's run that had T'Challa fighting Kraven, but the rights to the character were not available. Donald Glover and his brother Steven made some minor contributions to an early draft of the script, developing the relationship between T'Challa and his younger sister Shuri. Moore noted that an early script had more scenes outside of Wakanda to explore what it means to be African and African American in the world a bit more, and hoped these could be revisited in later film because particularly super cool sequence that was storyboarded before being cut. Feige described Black Panther as a big geopolitical action adventure that focuses on family and T'Challa learning to be king, with Civil War laying the groundwork for T'Challa's morality and establishing the geopolitical landscape that he would have to deal with on return to Wakanda. Moore compared the politics and humor in the film to Captain America the Winter Soldier, saying the former would be inherent but not preachy, and the latter would avoid the tones of Guardians of the Galaxy and Ant-Man. He also said the film would be a cross between The Godfather and the James Bond films as a big operatic family drama centered around a world of international espionage. Coogler was influenced by 1970s films such as the work of Francis Ford Coppola in that decade, as well as crime fiction. He also watched the film A Prophet for inspiration. Feige called the film story rich in culturally relevant ideas, with Boseman indicating there are parallels to pull from in the film in relation to Donald Trump becoming president of the United States after Barack Obama. The Feige added, "These are conversations we were having 2 years ago, because that is inherently the story within the comics. Moore said the film does not depend on the plots of any other MCU films, but it does affect the wider MCU moving forward. With Feige saying the film was a very important link to Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. Civil War did introduce the Wakanda language, based on the Xhosa language, which Bozo was taught by John Kani, who portrays T'Challa's father, King T'Chaka. Additional actors portraying Wakandans in Black Panther learned the language, with Coogler making the use of the language a priority as much as possible. Coogler tried to incorporate Xhosa, sorry I'm mispronouncing that, in natural and authentic situations, such as when multiple Wakandans were speaking the presence of non-natives and wanted to say something they would not understand. John Candy's son Atwanda served as the dialect coach on the film along with his father. And now on to the design. Cole called the film an historic opportunity to depict a black superhero at a time when African Americans are affirming their identities while dealing with vilification and dehumanization. It was important to root the film in the actual cultures of Africa, with filmmakers consulting with experts on the region of Africa that Wakanda is supposed to be located in, rooting the film in reality first and then building out from there. Coogler's vision for Wakanda was inspired by the Southern African country Lesotho, a country which has been historically an enclave, able to protect its independence because of its terrain, and was only lightly colonized by the British. The country's traditional blankets are also featured in the film. Coogler compared the rarity of vibranium existing only in Wakanda to the real-life mineral coltan that can almost only be found in Congo. He wanted Wakanda to feel like a country full with multiple distinct tribes, and created a project Bible that detailed each Wakandan tribe to guide the design process. Special care was taken to create a futuristic look that was not alien, as some of Jack Kirby's original comics designs appeared. And now on to the sets. Batchelor wanted to honor the comic designs, but filled in the gaps with research concentrated on sub-Saharan Africa, with inspiration from Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, Congo, Kinshasa, Ethiopia, as well as the designs of Zaha Hadid, and the pre-colonization architecture of the historic Mali Empire and the city of Timbuktu. Moore described this approach of taking inspiration from many different sources as a love letter to Africa. Beecher looked at the architecture of existing tribes, and they tried to advance the technology naturally rather than if Wakanda had been colonized. Circular motifs, signifying the transmission of energy, were an important theme throughout the film. Older locations depicted in the film, such as Warrior Falls, the City of the Dead, and the Hall of Kings, were juxtaposed with the more modern Afro-punk style of the Golden City, the capital. Rendezvous were incorporated into the tops of Wakanda skyscrapers, inspired by the appearance of mountains that blind River Canyon, South Africa. Beecher created different sigils and architecture for each of the Wakandan tribes, with the Bird tribe inspired by Lesotho, the Merchant tribe having a sigil based on Nigerian writing, and the Golden tribe using a sun symbol found throughout Africa. Gorilla City, home to the Jabari tribe, was originally set in rainforest, but Coogler suggested that it be found up a mountain in snow. Beecher based the written form of the Wakandan language on an old Nigerian language. She consulted with the mining and metallurgy experts for the vibranium technology, including for the vibranium mine where the substance is depicted as glowing blue rocks, but was refined in the stainless steel look previously seen in the MCU. The film also adapts the Kimoyo B technology from the comics and features sand-based technology. Beecher wanted futuristic elements of the film to be consistent with projections of what real-world technology may be like in 25 or 30 years, such as the maglev and hovercraft technology used in vehicles. The Wakandan vehicles include a maglev train for carrying vibranium, the King's Royal Talon Fighter, which looks like a mask from the top and bottom, and the Dragon Flyer, inspired by the Congo peafowl. The majority of Beecher's sets were constructed on sound stages in Atlanta, including Tribal Council, Shuri's Design Space, and the Hall of Kings. The Tribal Council set was built with a glass floor through which an old ruin can be seen. The exterior set for Warrior Falls was built on a backlot north of Atlanta and was inspired by the Oribi Gorge. The set was 36 feet, made up of a 6-foot high pool, and then 30-foot high cliff faces that were designed to be extended to 100 feet with the visual effects. A framework for the cliffs was hand sculpted from industrial styrofoam, with a system of tunnels built into the design to allow extras to climb up to different areas of the cliffs. The framework was then covered with 25,000 cubic feet of foam that was sculptured to match rocks found in the Ruby Gorge. The pool was filled using six large pumps, so as to create a waterfall above the ledge at the bottom. The base of the pool was made from padding so stunts could be safely carried out on the set, but designed to look like rocks and have enough grip that the actors would not fall over in the water. The set was completed 4 months and was used for 2 weeks of filming. And now on to the costumes. Costume designer Ruth E. Carter referenced the Maasai, Himba, Dogon, Basotho, Tuareg, Turkana, Xhosa, Zulu, Seri, and Dinka people in her designs. She also examined appropriate works by Japanese fashion designer Issey Miyake, French fashion designer Yves Saint Laurent, and American fashion designer Donna Karan. Winnie Mandela provided inspiration to Carter for Angela Bassett's costumes. The Dora Milaje costumes primarily used red to reflect different African cultures, including beaded tabards that feature talismans that would be passed down from mother to daughter. Carter wanted to avoid the girls in bathing suits look, and instead of the Dora Milaje wear full armor that they would practically need for battle. She also had to take the actors' stonework into consideration. Anthony Francisco, the senior visual development illustrator, noted the Dora Milaje costumes were based on 80% of the Maasai, 5% of samurai, 5% of ninjas, and 5% of the Ifwaku people from the Philippines. The armband and neck rings were a reference to the southern Ndebele people and denote stature. As such, Journal Koi has gold bangs and rings, while the other Dora Milaje were silver. The costumes for T'Challa combined his role as king and as head of the military, including combining a Kanete cloak with military boots. Carter also used distinct colors and patterns for each of Wakanda's tribes, such as green with shells for the river tribe based on the Suri, blue with wood for the border tribe, black with royal purple for the Black Panther in the royal palace, plums and purples from the merchant tribe in reference to the Tuareg, and ochre for the mining tribe inspired by the Himba. 3 out of every 5 people in Wakanda go barefoot. The Wakandans wear normal clothes outside of the country, with the colors of their costumes kept consistent. Overall, Carter created 700 costumes for the film, working with an army of illustrators, designers, filmmakers, fabricators, jewelry makers, and more. Her department head, Camille Friend, referenced traditional African art, fabrics, hair, and textures, and the current day natural hair movement in her designs. Friend tried to keep the actors' hair natural, using braids, locks, and twists, and when necessary, extensions and wigs. As with Carter, Friend designed each tribe to have their own identifiable aesthetic, such as the Javari tribe having hairstyle with very straight, clean lines and war-painted detail, inspired by Senegalese warriors. Excuse me. And now on to the filming. Principal photography had begun by January 21st, 2017 at EUE/Screen Gem Studios in the Atlanta metropolitan area under the working title Motherland. Filming also took place at Pinewood Atlanta Studios and the Sweet Opera neighborhood in Atlanta, which was Oakland, the High Museum of Art, which is the fictitious Museum of Great Britain, London, and Atlanta City Hall, which served as the United Nations building. Cinematographer Rachel Morrison, who was eager to work on Black Panther after working with Kugler and Fruitvale Station, first watched all of their MCU films to understand the established language. She wanted to push that language to feature more contrast and color. Visual effects supervisor Geoff Bondman provided Morrison with before and after shots of scenes from Civil War so she could understand what elements were captured on set and what is created digitally. She filmed in 3.4K RE RAW with RELX XT Plus cameras and Panavision Prima lenses, primarily using a 2-style camera setup with a 3rd or 4th camera on location. Morrison said that lighting was her biggest challenge, the magnitude of which was much bigger than I experienced before, and made extensive use of RE Sky Panel LED light fixtures, which you could pre-program from an iPad. Some sets were completely surrounded by sky panels. Shortly after filming started, Adwanda said he would appear in the film alongside his father, the latter reprising the role to Chaka. Once the photographs revealed that Martin Freeman would reprise his role as Everett K. Ross. Marvel announced that production was underway on January 26 and confirmed the casting of Freeman, Wright, and John Candy, while revealing Andy Serkis would reprise as well as Ulysses Klaue from Avengers Age of Ultron. Atandwa portrays a younger version of his father's character and also served as a cultural consultant during filming. Dialect coach Beth McGuire worked to ensure that there was continuity between the various actors who had to use Wakandan accents. Jordan joined the production later than the rest of the core cast. He felt this aided his performance, since his character is separate from and in conflict with the other characters. Because of this, Jordan kept to himself while he was on set. Since Black Panther and Avengers Infinity War were filming simultaneously in Atlanta, both production teams worked together closely to ensure a unified presentation of Wakanda in the films, as the country also plays a large role in Infinity War. Additional filming took place in South Korea, with the city of Busan serving as the setting of the car chase scene that involved 150 cars and over 700 people. Coogler and Morrison referenced the car chase sequences from Bullet, Drive, and The French Connection, taking the best elements from each for Black Panther sequence. Filming in Busan began on March 17th at the Jagalchi Fish Market. Filming moved to Gwangali Beach on March 21st, with other South Korean filming locations including Marine City and the Haewondae district, and at the Gwandiego Bridge. Sorry, I mispronounced that. The production crew hired hundreds of current and former film students from local universities as staff or assistant staff during the South Korean filming. Filming in the country arrived on March 27th, with additional location shooting taking place at the Rwenzori Mountains at Bwindi Impenetrable National Park in Uganda. John Marzano served as cinematographer for aerial footage of South Africa, Zambia, Uganda, and South Korea. At CinemaCon 2017, Wright was revealed to be portraying Shuri in the film. Filming concluded on April 19th, 2017. And now let's move on to the post-production process, starting with the editing. Black Panther was edited by Michael Shawver and Debbie Berman, with Shawver spending time on set during filming as well as an editing suite near the Atlanta production base. Berman joined the film after an initial director's cut had been produced, 2 weeks after she completed work on Marvel's Spider-Man Homecoming. Because Coogler likes to have both the male and female editing his films. She believed that she was chosen by Marvel because she is South African and had been expressing interest in Black Panther through the editing process for Homecoming after first seeing the character in Civil War. Shawver said that a lot of their time editing was spent discussing how their work was affecting the audience. For instance, Shawver felt that the initial versions of the first Warrior Falls fight fell flat and used techniques he learned working with Coogler and Creed to have the editing move back and forth to mimic the back and forth of the fighters. He also felt that adding more reaction shots to the crowd during the fight gave more weight to T'Challa's victory at the end. During work on the final battle, Berman pointed out to Coogler that the female Dormalagia are rescued by the all-male Jabari tribe, which she felt undermined the focus on female characters leading up to that moment. Coogler agreed, and subsequently added female Jabari fighters to the scene through additional photography, including the first on-screen Jabari fighter in the scene. Berman felt that this was an important change that would not have been made if only men were editing the film. As first hinted by Coogler in January 2018, the film includes 2 post-credits scenes. One showing T'Challa addressing 9 nations, and one featuring Sebastian Stan reprising his role as Buggy Barnes. The first scene was originally intended to be part of the actual ending of the film, but was moved to during the credits so the film could conclude in Oakland, where it begins. Coogler felt having this symmetry was very important. In the scene, T'Challa says, "The foolish build barriers, while the wise build bridges." Some felt this was a reference to the political climate of the presidency of Donald Trump, but Coogler stated that the line was added before Trump's election and was simply an African proverb that his wife had found. His intention with the scene was to inspire the audience by making T'Challa seem like a real person in a familiar real-world environment, similar how Tony Stark was treated in Iron Man. Coogler was unmandated by Marvel to feature connections to other films, but was interested in addressing the fact that Barnes was still in Wakanda per the end of Civil War, because it would be fun for the audience. He didn't feel the character fit in the body of the film, but felt an end credits scene was appropriate. And now on to the visual effects. Visual effects for the film were created by Industrial Light and Magic with help of Virtuos, Stereo D, Scaling VFX, Double Negative, Luma Pictures, Mammal Studios, Method Studios, Perception, Rise Visual Effects Studios, Torm Studios, Trixter, Cantina Creative, Lola VFX, Capital T, Exceptional Minds, Technicolor VFX, Rodeo VFX, Image Loom VFX, AnyBrain, Method Pune, Bot VFX, Pixone Images, FutureWorks, Vertigo Visual, FX3X, and Yandex Thailand Co. Pre-visualization was completed by Digital Domain on the third floor. Jeffrey Bauman served as visual effects supervisor. Comparing Black Panther to other MCU films, Bauman noted that the visual effects department often had free rein when creating otherworldly science fiction designs, but had to be more specific with this film due to the need to be authentic to African culture and geography. For the Warrior Falls environment, the amphitheater-like cliff walls had to be populated with digital spectators that could not simply be copy and pasted around the set due to the precise costume designs created by Carter for each tribe and character. Instead, the visual effects department had to work with the costumers to individually model each digital extra for the sequence. Additionally, visual effects were also added to adjust the opening sequence after test audiences were confusing the characters T'Chaka and T'Challa, both dressed as a Black Panther. Artists usually added some gray to T'Chaka's beard and gold trimmings to his suit to help differentiate the characters. ILM is primarily responsible for creating the digital urban environments of Wakanda. ILM VFX supervisor Craig Hammock compared this work to his time on Tomorrowland, but noted the additional challenge of not just building a futuristic city, but also one that was culturally appropriate. He explained that African culture has a certain amount of earthy material qualities that make things difficult to design as a futuristic city, which would typically use much steel and glass. ILM looked to real-life examples that blend modern architecture and with natural environments like One Central Park in Sydney and the Prof Africa Hotel in Kampala, but also had to depart from a strict understanding of physics and go into a movie cheat world at times to produce the desired look. Hammock was also inspired by the architecture of Uganda, where he spent time while aerial footage for the film was being shot. 60,000 individual buildings were designed and modeled for the city, which Hammock said was the first thing ILM began work on and also the last thing they were doing when the film was completed. Other things ILM worked on during the production included set extensions and blue screen replacements for interior sets, and the first rhinoceros shown in the film. For T'Challa's ancestral plane scenes, ILM replaced the basic set that was used with the full CG environment, including an acacia tree and animated panthers. The sky was based on Northern Lights, with this first designed for nighttime scenes before being replaced for daytime scenes, which the animators had to work hard to keep the effects visible. ILM also added additional sand for the burial scenes so Boseman could breathe during filming, and additional flames from a Killmonger burns the heart-shaped herb. Method Studios created many of the natural environments of Wakanda. The company built a 3,600 kilometer squared landscape that is visible in various aerial shots in the film, which was based on multiple landscapes from across Africa. Method was also responsible for creating Black Panther's and Killmonger's digital suits, including developing the look of the nanotechnology they use. They created many of the film's digital characters, vehicles, and weapons, with some of those digital creatures being the rhinoceros for the final battle, a sequence that Method did the majority of the work for. Because these rhinoceroses did not have to be seen on screen with the one designed by ILM, only basic creatures, scale, and details of the character models had to be shared between the two companies. Much of the work for the final fight included crowd simulation, with Method working alongside the stunt coordinators and motion capture sessions to give each fighter a unique style. In addition to randomizing the height and weight of each digital fighter, the models had to incorporate specific design elements for the costumers. Method also worked on the Vibranium Industries laboratory, including animating the gadgets seen in the latter. Luma Pictures worked on the Busan car chase sequence, digitally creating the cars in the sequence based on CAD models and on-screen reference. Multiple digital versions of the same car were used, so the production could have the actual cars and do various stunts with them, with Luma then inserting the digital versions to augment these moments. Luma also created the sonic forces from Claw's cannon, when Scaling VFX worked on digitally removing Circus's left arm for the London Museum High sequence. Several companies worked on the vibranium sound effects used in Wakandan technology, including ILM for the beginning of the film. Perception spent 18 months researching wearable technologies, phenomena, and visual themes to aid them in their work on the film. The designs for the vibranium sand were based on research being done with ultrasonic transducers for the purpose of mid-air haptics and acoustic levitation. They integrated this research into the Kawayo beads worn by Wakandans and as a working interface on the Royal Talon Fighter. Perception also created the traditional displays on the Talon Fighter and its Shuri's lab. For the Talon Fighter, the company experimented with parallax, depth, and volume in the information being displayed, as well as developing a unique color palette to brand the Wakandan tech. For Shuri's lab, Perception adjusted the hues on the wall to match her attire, and for a healing room proposed that the hexagonal pattern seen on the wall actually revealed itself to be articulated panels that pulse and ripple. The company also created the function of Black Panther's suit with nanotechnology and learned the suit with different patterns, as well as adding subdermal luminescent tattoos, the virtual car chase with Shuri and T'Challa, and designed the opening prologue, with the final version being created by Storm VFX. Perception also created the main on-end title sequence. And now on to the music. After reading the script, composer Ludwig Göransson decided to go to Africa to do research for the film. He spent a month in Senegal, first traveling with musician Baba Mal on his tour, and then spending several weeks working with local musicians to form the bass of his score. Göransson was particularly drawn to the talking drum, the tambin, or fula flute, to use in his character themes, along with horns. Namor compared the work Göransson did in defining the sound of the film to the use of music by James Gunn in the Guardians of the Galaxy films, with the composer pushing Marvel out of their comfort zone. Kendrick Lamar produced the film's curated soundtrack, Black Panther the Album, along with Top Dog Entertainment founder Anthony Tiffith, after Coogler wanted to include original songs for Lamar in the film because his artistic themes align with those we explore in the film. The soundtrack features songs I'd heard in the film as well as others inspired by it, with the others featured the majority of top billing names that are Top Dog Entertainment. Göransson collaborated with Lamar and producer Soundwave on the soundtrack. 3 singles of the soundtrack were released throughout January and February 2018. All the Stars, King's Dead, and Pray For Me. Black Panther the Album was released on February 9th, 2018, while the soundtrack of Göransson's score was released on February 16th. An extended play titled Black Panther Wakanda Remixed featured remixes of 5 cues from Göransson's score, was released on August 16th, 2018. Göransson worked with several other artists to create the remixes. It's interesting. So now let's take a look at... so let's take a look at some analysis of this movie, starting off with cultural importance. Here, get back here. Okay. Right for time, Jamil Smith felt Black Panther would prove to Hollywood that African American narratives have the power to generate profits from all audiences, and described it as a resistance to a regressive culture and political moment fueled in part by the white nativist movement. Its themes challenge institutional bias, its characters take unsuitable digs at oppressors, and its narrative includes prismatic perspectives on Black life and tradition. Discussing the film as a defining one for Black America in the New York Times Magazine, Carvel Wallace said that in contrast to earlier superhero films, Black Panther is steeped very specifically and purposefully in its blackness. It felt that Wakanda would become a promised land for future generations of Black Americans, untroubled by the criminal horrors of our current American existence. Historian Nathan D.B. Connolly said Black Panther was a powerful fictional analogy for real-life struggles that taps into a 500-year history of African-descended people imagining freedom, land, and national autonomy. Connolly also felt, culturally, the film would be this generation's A Raisin in the Sun. Writer and activist Sean King found the film to be a cultural moment in American Black history, similar to Rosa Parks' Montgomery bus boycott, Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech, or Barack Obama being elected president. By contrast, James Weld, writer for Canadian Dimension, stated at its core, Black Panther contains a fundamentally reactionary understanding of Black liberation that blatantly advocates respectability politics over revolution, allowing white folks such as myself to be extremely comfortable watching it. Will found the scene where Ross is portrayed as the hero for shooting down Wakandan ships to be the film's way of proving the vanquishing of armed resistance against oppression. Will also found that Killmonger was given the most hideous traits imaginable, making the only major African-American character an agitator for a revolution, a manic killer consumed by rage and violence. Also Rickford of Africa is the country where the Killmonger's role as a character is to discredit radical internationalism. Faisal Kuti from Middle East Eye felt that the film had underlying Islamophobic themes, with the only Islamic character being a Boko Haram-based group that kidnapped several girls and forced them to wear hijab. Science and Entertainment Exchange Director for the National Academy of Sciences, Richard Lovard, felt the film would increase interest in science, technology, and Africa for young Black Americans, similarly to how Hunger Games films and Brave sparked girls' interest in archery. Burnex felt many people who generally do not watch comic book films go to Black Panther since they're going to see themselves reflected in a huge way they just haven't been able to see before, especially since the film avoided the plight typically depicted in films about the Black experience. She also stated that strong female characters such as Shuri would be an inspiration for girls. Gil Robertson, co-founder and president of the African American Film Critics Association, called the film culturally important and a gate-opener opportunity for other Black-centered projects. Child development expert Deborah Gilboa felt the film would make a huge impact on children's spirits by offering positive role models. Scholar Marlene D. Allen felt the film, saying, "If you can see it, you can be it," applied to the film, especially with the female characters in the film. Allen felt the women of Wakanda are the very definition of Black girl magic, a term coined by Kashawn Thompson in 2013 to celebrate the beauty, power, and resilience of Black women. Trey Johnson of Rolling Stone felt that after decades of trying to nail the modern Black superhero, we may finally be getting what we've asked for. With Johnson saying Black Panther felt different from the Blaxploitation films of the 1970s and the Blaxploitation-light attempts at Black superhero films in the 1990s and 2000s because it was respectable, imaginative, and powerful, setting new direction for the depiction of Black superheroes. In the film's opening weekend, 37% of audiences in the United States were African American, according to PostTrack, compared to 35% Caucasian, 18% Hispanic, and 5% Asian. This was the most diverse audience for a superhero film ever. African Americans generally make up 50% of audiences for superhero films. In the second weekend, demographics were 37% Caucasian, 33% African American, 18% Hispanic, and 7% Asian. In early January 2018, philanthropist Frederick Joseph created a GoFundMe drive to raise money for children of color at the Boys and Girls Club in Harlem to see Black Panther. Joseph said the film was a rare opportunity for undeserved children of color to see a Black major comic book character brought to film. Joseph promoted the drive Bozeman on the Ellen DeGeneres show. The drive went on to raise over $45,000, exceeding its goal, with the money also funding other programs for children in Harlem. Joseph also started the Black Panther Challenge, where he encouraged other people to create similar drives for their communities. GoFundMe made a centralized site for those wishing to start a drive for the challenge. 400 additional drives were started around the world, and the overall drive became the largest GoFundMe in history for an entertainment event, raising over $400,000. Many celebrities offered their support and contributions to the drives, including Ellen DeGeneres, Snoop Dogg, Chelsea Clinton, J.J. Abrams, Octavia Spencer, and British actor Jada Nuka. In June 2018, the Smithsonian Institution's National Museum of African American History and Culture announced that they had acquired several items from the film for their collection, including Boseman's Black Panther costume and a shooting script for the film signed by Coogler, Feige, Moore, and Cole. The museum said the collection provides a fuller story of Black culture and identity by showing the progression of Black Africans in film, and history that once regulated them to flat, one-dimensional, marginalized figures. In conjunction with the Hollywood Reporter's Women Entertainment Mentorship Program and its part in the greater Los Angeles chapter of Big Brothers Big Sisters, Walt Disney Studios created the Black Panther Scholarship, worth $250,000 to Yolia Marymount University. Boseman, Nyong'o, and Guerrera presented the scholarship to its first recipient at the Hollywood Reporter's 2018 Women Entertainment event in early December 2018. And now finally to African and African American representation. Dwayne Wong O'Malley, writing HuffPost, saw the film and its comic origins as addressing serious political issues concerning Africa's relationship to the West that's very rarely given the serious attention that it deserves, with Wakanda's portrayed as suspicious toward outsiders. He concluded that while the country is fictional, the politics are very real. The end of colonialism did not end West tampering in Africa's politics. Carlos Rosario Gonzalez of Bam Smack Pow, so the struggle between T'Challa and Killmonger represents the collision of what it means to be African and what Africa means to Afro minorities today. In this view, Wakanda represents Africa without Western colonization. Killmonger shows us that we can sometimes inevitably become what we seek to destroy, concluding that Killmonger wants to use Wakanda's resources to be colonizer of the West, while Wakanda's conservative ways created the very problem that sought to destroy them, Eric Killmonger. Shalini Cobb, writing in The New Yorker, discussed the divide between Africans and African Americans, which he called a fundamental dissonance. He felt that Sean Killmonger represented dueling responses to 5 centuries of African exploitation at the hands of the West. The villain, to the extent that the term applies, is history itself. Cobb added that Black Panther is political in a way previous MCU films were not, because in those, we were at least clear about where the lines of fantasy departed from reality, while this film is set in an invented nation in Africa, a continent that has been grappling with invented versions of itself ever since white men first declared it the Dark Continent. It's about plundering its people and resources. Right for The Atlantic, Adam Serwer argued against the assertion that Eric Killmonger was a representation of Black liberation, positing instead that he represented imperialism. He felt that this was emphasized through his actions, as Killmonger's attempts to take over several of the world's major cities, notably include Hong Kong. Since China does not have a white Western hegemony in need of overthrowing, Killmonger's desire to conquer China was purely for the sake of power. Ultimately, he argues that Black Panther does not render a verdict that violence is unacceptable to a Black liberation. To the contrary, that's precisely how Wakanda is liberated. It renders the verdict on imperialism as a tool of Black liberation, saying that the Master's tools cannot dismantle the Master's house. Patrick Athara, writing in the Washington Post, described the film as offering a regressive neocolonial version of Africa, which, rather than a redemptive counter-mythology, offers the same destructive myths. Athara highlighted that Africa is portrayed, still essentially a European creation, as divided and tribalized, with Wakanda run by a wealthy and feuding elite that, despite its advanced technical abilities, does not have a means of succession beyond lethal combat. The Wakandans still fit cleanly into the Western molds of a dark people and dark continent, according to Athara, and they remain so remarkably unsophisticated that a returning American could basically stroll in and take over. The film should not be mistaken for an attempt at liberating Africa from Europe. Quite the opposite. Its redemptive counter-mythology entrenches the tropes that have been used to dehumanize Africans for centuries. Christopher LeBron, in a piece for the Boston Review, called the film racist because it depicts Black Americans who have been left in poverty and oppression, as exemplified by Killmonger, is still being relegated to the lowest rung of political regard. In the film, treated as less deserving of empathy and less capable of their acts being deemed heroic than even Ross's white spy. LeBron felt that T'Challa could have shown himself a good person by understanding how Killmonger was affected by American racism and T'Challa's cruelty, and could have agreed that justice sometimes requires violence as last resort against oppression. He ended by commenting that in 2018, a world home to both the movement for Black lives and a president who identifies white supremacists as fine people, we are given a movie about Black empowerment where the only redeemed Blacks are African nobles who safeguard virtue and goodness against the threat of not white Africans or Europeans, but a Black American. That's something to think about, I guess. So overall, I really, really enjoyed this movie. And honestly, even though it did not win the Oscar for Best Picture, I'm still happy that it got nominated anyway. So, yeah. So overall, I give Black Panther 5 arc reactors out of 5. Well, anyway, tune in tomorrow as we take a look at Avengers Infinity War. So, until then, in the words of the late great Stan Lee, Excelsior. Oh, and also, Wakanda Forever.